How's it going, guys? Thanks so much for checking out my review. I'll also be giving away a copy of Mortal Kombat 11 for the Nintendo Switch, so if you want to enter, be sure to check out the link in the description after watching this review. Now, on to the video. With an astonishing 27 years under its belt, the Mortal Kombat series has gone down in history as some of the most brutal violence in video games. Most commonly known for being the game to piss off the US government to the point of helping to create the ESRB, Mortal Kombat has been working to not only be known for its violence, but also for its gameplay. Recent iterations starting at Mortal Kombat 9 show a push towards more modern fighting mechanics, and Mortal Kombat 11 is a true refinement to that formula. On average, fighting games aren't too well known for having a great and memorable story. Mortal Kombat 11 is trying to break that stereotype, and to some extent it does. It's not to the levels of a Game of the Year narrative-driven game, but more on par with something like the Fast and the Furious series. Absurd action that makes for a good popcorn flick. This story takes place after the events of Mortal Kombat 10. After Shinnok was defeated, Raiden went through some dark power changes that caught the eye of Kronika, the Elder God of Time. Wanting to rewrite the events of the timeline under her own rules, she sets out on colliding the present and past timelines for a complete reset. As far-fetched and wild as that story sounds, it creates some of the best moments for the Mortal Kombat series. Suddenly characters are meeting their past selves and their reactions are fantastic. Young Johnny Cage seeing just how much of a family man he becomes in the future is hysterical. Equally as funny to see is the present timeline Johnny Cage realizing how obnoxious he used to be. Their juxtaposition scenes are easily some of the best moments in the story, but it's not just that. What Mortal Kombat 11 does so well with its story is making sure each character gets some sort of spotlight time. While yes, I would have loved to see some characters more than others, it's still great to see characters who traditionally have been background characters at the forefront. The 6-hour campaign feels like it hits its sweet spot of balancing out interesting character matchups with full-on cinematic cutscenes, not so common in fighting games. For anyone riding the Mortal Kombat hype train wanting to get into the series but haven't played the previous games, you might not have any connections to the characters, but the flat-out chaotic action is still easy to follow. Even for those that just dip their toes back during the arcade era, you'll see some recognizable faces that I'm sure you'll appreciate. Narrative aside, the real attraction of any fighting game is its combat, and that's gotten some changes with Mortal Kombat 11. Running has been completely removed from gameplay, with short dashes replacing them. It ultimately makes matches feel more strategic, forcing you to analyze the distance of your attacks and your opponents. The special meter from previous games is now 2 separate meters dedicated to amplifying either offensive or defensive moves. These replenish faster too, making them a much larger part of fights and comebacks. The X-ray moves from previous games are gone, replaced now by fatal blows. These moves can be activated once during a set when your health is nearly gone. They're essentially a last-ditch effort to turn around a fight. In the best of times, they come off as a mechanic that makes the closest matchups only more stressful, but also way more satisfying. They can also feel a bit cheap since they deal a decent amount of damage, but I usually felt the former one more. Overall, these mechanic changes are a welcome part of the combat that made fights more entertaining in my opinion. With that said, I can understand someone that's new to the series watching this review may be thinking this all sounds really complicated. Don't worry though, Mortal Kombat 11 offers some great tutorials and features for both basic and advanced mechanics. You can stick moveset lists on the screen during offline matches that help you memorize your favorite character's attacks. It's a great way to prep for online matches. There are even tutorials for specific characters, so there's something here for just about anyone wanting to learn to play. Now, a trend in the recent Mortal Kombat games has been the customization of characters, and that's no different with 11. With every character, you get customization of their costume, weapon cosmetics, and more. Each character has 2 custom slots and presets so that you can save your favorite creations for easy picking. With the story mode spanning across different eras of Mortal Kombat, there's plenty for you to unlock. That brings us over to the 2 main game modes outside of the main story and online, and these are Classic Towers and Towers of Time. Classic Towers has you take on a series of CPU opponents leading up to fighting the story's main antagonists. It's like a playlist feature but for fighting games. Tower of Time on the other hand is more of a challenge mode that activates modifiers on the match. This can be something like giving the enemy more health or weakening your attacks. Regardless of the modifier, you're usually always at a disadvantage, and it's brutal. This is the same mode you try to complete to earn currency for the Crypt mode. The Crypt is where you spend your currency to unlock chests filled with cosmetics, concept art, and more. A lot of the complaints online have stated that this is a push for microtransactions, but I don't entirely agree. Making the Tower of Time hard pushes you to invest more time into the game, and I have no problem with that. It's more that the difficulty doesn't come off as challenging but rather unfair. You do have the option to buy currency online with real cash, but even then individual items for purchase outside of the crypt are on rotation. If I wanted a very specific item, buying the currency with cash wouldn't even guarantee me being able to buy that item if it's not in rotation. NetherRealm has stated that they're working on patching the Towers of Time to be more challenging than unfair, and have even sent out a server-side update already. Lastly, there's the online mode, which I played on Nintendo Switch and Xbox One. Both experiences were similar. I had the option to rank match, private match, or even practice with friends across the globe. The online performance seemed mostly stable, with only a few hiccups with opponents that had a slightly high ping. Luckily, you get to see your opponent's ping before accepting their match, so you can always turn them down if it's not up to your qualifications. Mortal Kombat 11 is one beautiful looking game. Despite running on a custom version of Unreal Engine 3, this game could easily fool anyone into thinking that this was the first Unreal 4 Mortal Kombat game. Anytime I jump into a match, I'm taken back not just by the action at the forefront, but also the attention to detail in the background. Inside the military stage, for example, you can see soldiers in the background cheering on while the shadows of the fighters are cast on the soft-looking tarp. There's a lovely bloom coming from the sunshine outside of the base that then reflects on the many objects in the background. Those objects are interactable too, not just the actual ones that you can use to attack. For example, moving back and forth in this stage, you can see the bones on the floor actually react to your movement. Little touches like that really help make the gameplay feel much more interactive and alive. You're not just two fighters over a nice looking background, it comes off more as me watching a live fight from a side view. The cinematic cutscenes throughout the campaign are marvelously framed to come off like you're watching a Mortal Kombat movie, a good one. That's a compliment because you'll be watching a lot of these cutscenes for a large chunk of the campaign. Character models have a ton of detail to them, and you'll really see it for yourself anytime you get a fatality or a fatal blow. I'm sure fans of the gore and violence will perfectly be content with all of the mayhem on display. Now let's talk about the Nintendo Switch version. I played both the Xbox One X and Nintendo Switch versions, and shockingly, they don't look the same. Okay, sarcasm aside, yes, the Switch looks worse. It's a tablet, so of course it does. How does it look in comparison to other Switch games though, or at least for Switch standards? Well, it's alright, but certainly not a great looking game. I think that's fine, but what I think starts to bother the visuals is the smoothing of characters. Models have this smooth effect over them, and so any gruesome attacks shown end up looking censored without actually being censored. For example, Scorpion's fatal blow here looks like it does more damage on the Xbox One than it does on the Switch, despite being the same scene uncensored. What I will compliment the Switch version on is that everything on display with the Switch is recognizable, which I think is the most important factor with the lower tech version. There are fewer details here, but characters and stages are still recognizable and feel the same as they would on other platforms. I mean, I primarily played the weakest and strongest console versions for this review, and I was easily able to transition between the two. As for performance, frame rates across the board run at 60 FPS regardless of platform. The resolution, on the other hand, varies a little bit more. PS4 Pro runs at what looks like 1440p, while the Xbox One X version looks like it hits 1800p. The base consoles run at a lower 1080p resolution, while the Switch uses a dynamic resolution to maintain its frame rate. In dock mode, Switch usually hovers around 720p depending on the scene. Handheld mode, on the other hand, can dip well below that. Pausing the game and looking at it, it can honestly look like an eyesore, but in actual practice, I was way more focused on playing than I was looking at the transparency of a character's hair. While I haven't been too into the Mortal Kombat music for a while, this is a step up from Mortal Kombat 10 for sure. You'll see a few classic themes from previous iterations mixed in with some new tracks here. What really stood out to me though was the amazing voice work. Across the wide character roster, just about everyone with the exception of Ronda Rousey really brings their A-game to their performance. Ronda sadly just doesn't really feel like she knows how to voice act, with a delivery that feels a bit forced in moments that are supposed to be emotional. It came off as fake to me. Now, something I do want to commend NetherRealm on is their implementation of HD Rumble with the Switch version. It's so well done. Punches, jabs, specials, everything have this added sense of momentum that make the most brutal moments in the game feel more impactful. In an odd way, it actually makes the Switch version stand out a bit more when playing on the go, distracting me from the lower quality visuals. Mortal Kombat 11 continues the modernization trend of recent entries in the series, creating a fighting game that balances out an entertaining story with well-balanced combat. Those who invest the time into it will surely be rewarded with extra content for their favorite characters, although technically that was sort of a problem at launch. Luckily, NetherRealm has already begun to tweak a lot of the grinding complaints from launch, promising a full-on patch next week. I think it speaks a lot to NetherRealm wanting to do right by their players. With the grinding complaints pending, Mortal Kombat 11 as it is now is still a superb experience that'll have you getting over here for months to come.